The town of Maplewood had always been a dot on the map to Nathan Hale, a forgettable speck tucked between business trips, conference calls, and mergers that kept him tethered to Manhattan's skyline. He never meant to return, not really. The only reason he was here now was 12 years old, sarcastic beyond his years, and currently sitting in the backseat of a rented SUV with his arms crossed like the world owed him something. Which Nathan supposed it did. "Do we have to stay the whole summer?" Owen's voice came from behind him, laced with that peculiar brand of preteen dread. Nathan adjusted his sunglasses. "It's not a punishment, it's a change of pace." "For who?" He didn't answer, mostly because he didn't know. He told himself this was about Owen, about giving his son a break from the mess New York had become since the divorce. Owen had grown quieter in the last year, had stopped asking about his mother, and started carrying invisible walls. Nathan recognized those walls. He'd built his own decades ago. But Maplewood, it was supposed to be a 3-month stay at the lake house his late parents had left behind. A space with just enough Wi-Fi to keep him connected to the Hale Corporation and far enough from the city to not feel its pressure clawing at his neck. Then they'd return, unscathed, unaltered. The GPS announced their arrival, and the gravel crackled under the tires as they pulled into the driveway. The lake house stood like a patient relic of childhood summers, faded blue siding, a warped porch swing, pine needles carpeting the front steps. Nathan's throat tightened, unexpected and unwelcome. Memories weren't supposed to feel like ambushes. Owen climbed out, shouldering his duffel with the resigned grace of a kid who'd lost a bet. Nathan followed, tugging a suitcase from the trunk. He looked up just in time to see someone approaching from across the lawn, wiping her hands on a gardening apron. She had dirt on her cheek and a sun-faded baseball cap hiding a mess of auburn curls. Familiar. Too familiar. "Nathan Hale," she called, hands on her hips. "Didn't expect to see you back here before retirement." He blinked. "Claire." She smiled, small, crooked, and a little wary. "It's been a long time." Claire Monroe didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in Nathan Hale. She remembered when he left, all cufflinks and ambition, too sharp for Maplewood's softness. And now here he was, standing in front of the old lake house with his son, looking exhausted behind his sunglasses. She had no intention of getting involved. She ran the community garden now, managed the town's after-school program, and kept her life tidy, one to-do list at a time. That's what you did after enough mess. You learned to control what you could. Still, seeing him tug a suitcase up the steps made her pause. "I've been taking care of the place," she said, hands brushing the dirt off her apron. "Kept the pipes from freezing, cleaned it once a month. Your mom asked me to before." He nodded. "Thanks, I didn't expect that." She loved this place, and Owen was just a toddler last time he visited, figured it might need a softer landing. Owen glanced at her briefly, then away. The boy had his father's eyes, sharp, guarded. Claire knelt down slightly to his level. "You're taller than I remember." He shrugged. "You'll like the lake," she offered. "Water's cold, but the sunsets make up for it." He nodded, non-committal. Nathan stepped in. "We're just settling in, but it's good to see you." She nodded. "You too." Then she walked back toward her garden, heart pounding for no good reason. She didn't plan on Nathan Hale staying. She certainly didn't plan on remembering how his voice made her chest flutter in a way she hadn't felt in years. She thought she was long past that. The first week passed in an uneasy rhythm. Nathan balanced spreadsheets in the mornings, took Owen to town in the afternoons, and returned calls from his laptop with the lake stretching out behind him like a painted lie. Owen barely spoke. He'd spend hours on the dock sketching in a notebook he wouldn't let Nathan see. Claire showed up sometimes, dropping off extra vegetables, updating him on water quality reports, offering him keys to the local library when Owen seemed especially withdrawn. She didn't push, which oddly made it worse. He found himself watching her from the porch when she walked back across the lawn. Her steps were different now, firmer, like someone who had nothing to prove anymore. They bumped into each other again at the general store, then at the farmer's market, then at the town council meeting he reluctantly attended after Claire told him it would be good for Owen to see community in motion. Each time it got a little harder to look away. Each time, it got a little easier to remember who he used to be before New York taught him how to forget. One night a thunderstorm rolled in fast, drenching the town in hard rain. The power flickered, then went out. Nathan lit candles, and Owen didn't look up from his sketchpad. "You okay?" Owen nodded. "It's just weather." Nathan almost smiled. "You're braver than I was at your age." "Mom hated storms," Owen said quietly. The silence was different this time, not icy, just tender. Nathan reached for a deck of cards from a drawer and held it out. "Want to play something?" Owen hesitated, then nodded. By the time Claire knocked on the door with a flashlight and some homemade bread, just in case, father and son were laughing over a made-up card game that neither could quite explain. She lingered at the doorway, watching the flickering candlelight bounce off the walls, and something shifted in her chest. She hadn't seen Nathan like this, unguarded, present. It made her forget the time he left. It made her wonder if she'd been wrong about what kind of man he'd become. And maybe, just maybe, she hadn't planned on any of this either. The next morning the sky broke open into brilliant blue. Maplewood had that peculiar gift. After a storm, everything gleamed like it had been scrubbed new. The lake shimmered. Pines dripped sunlit beads from their needles. And for the first time in over a year, Nathan woke up not to a vibrating phone, but to the sound of birds. He found Owen outside, barefoot on the porch, scribbling into his sketchbook with surprising intensity. "You're up early," Nathan said, coffee steaming in his hand. "I like the mornings here," Owen replied, still drawing. Nathan leaned against the railing. He was about to ask what Owen was sketching but stopped himself. He was learning, slowly, awkwardly, that Owen didn't always need questions. Sometimes he just needed silence. A few houses down, Claire was setting out planters by her porch. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, and she wore cut-off jeans and an old baseball tee. He watched her without meaning to, then looked away before Owen caught him. Later that day, Claire arrived with a box tucked under her arm. "I thought Owen might like this," she said, holding out a wooden box of charcoal pencils and high-quality paper. "Leftovers from an art supply donation at the youth center. Figured they deserved better than collecting dust." Owen blinked, surprised. "Thanks." Claire smiled, easy and soft. "You're welcome." Nathan stood in the doorway, watching them. She had a way of speaking to Owen that didn't bend or patronize. It was even, real. Owen turned back into the house, eager to test the supplies. Nathan stepped outside with her. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I know," she replied, "but I wanted to." There was a pause, and then she gestured toward the dock. "Walk with me." The boards creaked beneath their steps as they made their way to the edge of the lake. The air smelled like pine and distant campfires. Nathan shoved his hands in his pockets. "You've changed." She laughed. "So have you." "Is that a compliment?" "It's a fact." She glanced at him. "You're quieter now, slower." He smirked. "I live on conference calls, Claire. I'm not exactly zen." "No, but you're different with him. I remember you being sharper, always on." "I had to be." "Do you still think that?" Nathan didn't answer right away. He looked out at the water, the stillness stretching between them. "I used to think success was about being first. First to answer, first to land the deal, first to outmaneuver. But somewhere along the line, I started feeling like I was running from something instead of toward it." Claire tilted her head. "And now?" He looked back at her. "Now I don't know what I'm doing, I'm winging it." She smiled. "Welcome to parenting." They stood like that for a while, close but not too close, until Owen called from the porch, asking for lunch. As they walked back, their arms brushed just once, but neither moved away. The following week brought the 4th of July, which in Maplewood meant bonfires, corn on the cob, and the kind of fireworks that rattled the windows and made small children cry. Nathan hadn't planned to go. Crowds weren't his thing. But Owen wanted to, and Claire had offered to save them seats by the lake. The town gathered in folding chairs and on blankets. Someone handed Nathan a sparkler. He didn't light it, just watched as Owen laughed at something Claire said, his face open in a way Nathan hadn't seen since before the divorce. There was a strange tug in Nathan's chest. It wasn't jealousy. It was something softer, something like gratitude laced with fear. When the fireworks began, Claire leaned close enough for him to feel the warmth of her shoulder against his. They didn't speak, just watched the sky burst open in color. At one point he turned to her. Her face was lit gold and red, her eyes fixed upward, but her mouth turned in a private smile. She looked peaceful. She looked like home. And it hit him then, quiet and unwelcome. He didn't want to leave. The next day, Nathan found Owen in the community garden, kneeling beside Claire as she pulled weeds, and told him the names of the herbs he was smelling. "You have a green thumb," she said to Owen. He shrugged. Mom hated gardening, said dirt made her itch. Claire offered a gentle smile. "Some people don't like mess." "She didn't like much," Owen said, then added quickly, "She's not mean, just tired all the time." Claire didn't push. She simply offered him a pair of gloves and kept weeding beside him, letting the conversation hang safely in the air. Nathan watched from the fence for a long time before stepping in. "You sure you want him digging around in there?" he asked. Claire glanced up at him. "He's doing fine." "I meant he can be a little guarded." She dusted her knees off. "Wonder where he gets that." Nathan chuckled, shaking his head. "Fair." They stood side by side as Owen continued his task. The afternoon sun bathed the garden in honey-colored light. "I'm not used to anyone else stepping in," Nathan admitted. Claire looked at him. "You don't have to do it all alone." "That's just it. I don't know how not to." Claire didn't answer. She just looked at him for a moment longer than was necessary. Then she turned back to the plants. But her words lingered, soft and unwelcome. "You don't have to do it all alone." That night the lake was glass still. Nathan sat on the porch with a tumbler of whiskey, watching the moon rise above the treetops. He'd answered no emails today, missed 2 meetings. He'd helped Owen rig a tire swing instead. He heard the knock before he saw her. Claire stood on the steps, holding a plate of lemon bars and a cardigan slung over one shoulder. "Peace offering," she said, "for making your kid fall in love with kale." He smiled. "Come up." She did. They talked for hours, about her brother who moved to California, about the storm that flooded the library last spring, about the tree Nathan once carved his initials into when he was 15, and how it still stood by the dock, gnarled but alive. Eventually the conversation slowed, drifting into the quiet space where comfort grows. "I used to think you were untouchable," Claire said suddenly, not quite looking at him, "like you had everything figured out." "I used to think that too," he replied. She turned toward him. Her eyes caught the moonlight. "What do you think now?" He looked at her, really looked. "That I never had a clue." And just like that, something cracked open. Not dramatic, not loud, just a soft shift. A door creaking, a wall crumbling. She didn't move closer, neither did he. But the air between them felt different now. Like it had been waiting. By mid-July, Nathan had stopped checking his phone before breakfast. He didn't mean to. At first it was just a day or two where the signal dropped, or he left it charging in the bedroom while Owen tugged him toward the dock. But the longer they stayed, the more those little habits unraveled. No more suits, no more dinner over spreadsheets, no more pretending that time with Owen was just another item on the calendar. And Claire was becoming less of a neighbor and more of a rhythm. Someone who fit into the space his life had made when it cracked open. It started with errands, a shared grocery run here, a drop-off of rhubarb muffins there. But then she invited him to help at the youth center's Saturday repair day, and he said yes before he could think of an excuse. That morning, Nathan showed up in jeans that still had the tags on, and a clean white t-shirt that didn't stay clean for long. Claire was already knee-deep in an old bookshelf that needed sanding. "You ever held a power sander before?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. He took it from her hand, flipped the switch backward, and almost dropped it. She laughed. "Didn't think so." He handed it back, grinning. "I run a billion-dollar company, not a tool shed." "You know," she said, handing him a paintbrush instead, "that's not always a compliment around here." He joined her in brushing the chipped wooden frame, their arms moving in easy coordination. Across the room, Owen sat with a few younger kids, showing them how to sketch trees with charcoal. He looked lighter lately, less on edge, and Nathan didn't miss the way Claire had become part of that. They worked quietly, the scent of sawdust and old paper filling the air. Eventually, Claire spoke without looking up. "I used to come here after school," she said. "My mom worked late. It was the only place that stayed open past 5. The old director, Ms. Tanner, used to keep snacks in her desk just for me. Made me feel like I mattered, even when everything else felt like chaos." Nathan watched her hands, steady and deliberate. "I wish I'd known," he said softly. She glanced up. "You were already gone by then." He wanted to say he was sorry. He wanted to tell her that if he could rewind time, he'd come back sooner. But instead, he just nodded and kept painting. Some truths didn't need fixing, just honoring. Later that afternoon, they found themselves walking back to the lake house, arms full of leftover supplies and Claire's basket of tools. Owen had run ahead, claiming he wanted to sketch the light before sunset. The air buzzed with insects, summer thick and warm, and Claire's curls were stuck to the back of her neck. She stopped suddenly and turned to Nathan. "You don't look like someone just passing through anymore," she said. He blinked. "Is that a good thing?" "I'm not sure yet." There it was again, that guarded smile. The one that said she wanted to believe in him but hadn't decided if it was safe yet. "I didn't plan to stay this long," he admitted, "but I haven't wanted to leave either." Claire looked at him, eyes steady and searching. "Then why are you still acting like you're on borrowed time?" He didn't have an answer, not one he was ready to say out loud. The lake house began to shift with new routines. Claire would drop by some evenings, sometimes with dessert, sometimes just to return a book Owen had borrowed from the library. Nathan would help her lift supplies from her truck or fix the crooked porch light she kept meaning to get to. One night, after a particularly long day of repairs at the youth center, they ended up on the porch swing with 2 glasses of red wine. Claire tucked her knees beneath her. Nathan sat beside her, the cushion sagging a little under their weight. "I always thought you'd marry someone from the city," she said casually. He tilted his head. "Why?" "Because back then, you looked like someone who wanted to be seen, someone who wanted to be impressive more than understood." He let out a slow breath. "I did." "And now?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out at the lake, where fireflies had begun to dance over the reeds. "I think I'm tired of being impressive." Claire didn't smile, but her expression softened, like she'd been waiting to hear that for a long time. She leaned her head against the back of the swing. "That sounds a lot like growth." "I think it's just exhaustion." "Same difference," she murmured. They sat in the quiet for a long while, and this time when their hands brushed, neither of them moved away. One morning, Nathan found Owen in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with a confidence that alarmed him. "You're cooking." "I've been watching Claire," Owen said. "She says anyone can cook if they follow the heat." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" Owen shrugged. "I don't know, but she's usually right." Nathan smiled despite himself. "She is." The kitchen smelled like cinnamon. There were dishes in the sink. The screen door was open to the lake breeze. It was messy and warm and alive. He suddenly remembered the loft in Manhattan, gleaming, sterile, silent. He didn't miss it. But good things rarely stay simple. It happened on a Tuesday. He was sitting with Claire on the library steps, watching Owen help reorganize the children's books when his phone rang. He ignored it the first time, then again. On the third, he checked it. A message from his assistant. "Client dropped the Bennett account. Press 1 a statement, need you back by Friday." He stared at the screen, the letters too sharp, too loud. Then another message blinked through. "They're offering a seat on the board. We need you here, Nathan." He didn't respond. Claire noticed. Everything okay? He slipped the phone into his pocket. "Work, just noise." But something in his voice betrayed him. Claire looked at him a long time. "You're leaving, aren't you?" He shook his head. "I don't know, maybe I don't want to." But you still might. He looked at her. What do you want me to say? I don't want you to say anything, she replied quietly. I want you to choose something. And then she stood up, brushing dust from her jeans. The door didn't slam. She didn't walk away in anger, but the space she left behind felt like the air had been pulled out of it. Nathan sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, while his phone buzzed again in his pocket. Nathan didn't leave. Not yet, anyway. He told himself he was buying time, one more day to sort through contracts, another to figure out Owen's schooling if they stayed longer, another to talk to his lawyer about the board seat. But deep down, he knew it wasn't logistics that kept him frozen. It was Claire. It was Owen who had stopped asking when they were going home. It was the ache that had lodged itself in Nathan's chest ever since she walked away from him on the library steps, quiet but deeply disappointed. That was the thing about Claire, she never dramatized. Her silence was the loudest part. That night Nathan stood alone at the end of the dock, watching the last streaks of sunlight drain from the sky. The lake reflected everything, the pine trees, the hush of the evening, the man who didn't know how to stay but didn't want to leave. Owen joined him, barefoot and holding a flashlight like a sword. "Did you talk to Claire?" he asked. Nathan exhaled slowly. "Not yet. She hasn't come by." "I know." Owen tilted his head. "Are you gonna take the job back in New York?" Nathan looked at his son, tall and lanky, and suddenly older than he remembered. "Do you want to go back?" he asked. Owen didn't answer right away. "I like it here." Nathan swallowed. "I know." A pause. "I like her too," Owen added. "Claire." Nathan looked at him. "I do too." And it was the simplest truth he'd said all summer. Claire didn't avoid him exactly, but she kept a careful distance. She still ran the youth center and hosted garden club on Sundays. She still smiled politely when their paths crossed, but something in her had gone still, like a door gently closed and locked from the inside. Nathan respected that. He also hated it. He found himself volunteering more often, stocking shelves at the food pantry, helping repaint the bandstand, even refereeing the youth soccer game when no one else showed. At first it was to see her, but slowly it became something else. He started to feel the pull of community in his bones, the way the town leaned in when something needed fixing. Owen noticed too. "You're different here," he said one morning as they biked to the bakery. Nathan laughed, wind in his face. "Is that a compliment?" "It's weird, but yeah, you don't yell at traffic anymore." Nathan grinned. "That's because there is no traffic." "Still, it's better." The word sat with him long after they got their muffins. Better. It was a small word, but it weighed everything. Claire, meanwhile, kept her head down. She had survived worse heartbreaks, though none so quietly built. This wasn't a betrayal. It was worse than that. It was the possibility of something real slipping away, not because it was broken, but because it wasn't chosen. She missed him. God, she missed them. But she had made peace with people leaving before. She'd rebuilt her life from scratch when her father left and her mother unraveled. She learned to plant her roots without depending on anyone to water them. And still, when Nathan showed up at the summer reading picnic and helped a kindergartner untangle her shoelaces with that ridiculous patience he was learning, Claire had to look away. It would have been easier if he'd just left. It was the local fair that finally broke the standoff. Every year Maplewood Summer Fair took over the soccer fields with strings of lights, fried dough, hay rides, and enough noise to keep the fire department nervous. Claire had no intention of going. But the youth center was running the Dunk Tank fundraiser, and the kids had insisted she take a turn. So she showed up, hair braided, denim jacket pulled tight around her. She was laughing when Nathan saw her from across the lot, really laughing. One of the teenagers had just dunked her, and she came up dripping, swearing under her breath and flipping her braid over her shoulder. He didn't realize he was walking toward her until he was already there. "You're a good sport," he said. She blinked. Wasn't a choice. He offered her a towel someone had tossed aside. She took it, squeezing water from her sleeves. "You've been avoiding me," he said quietly. "You've been figuring things out," she replied, not unkindly. He nodded. "I don't want to go back." Claire met his gaze, water clinging to her lashes. "Then don't." "I mean it," he said. "Not just for the summer. I've been talking to Owen about school, and to my board about stepping back, not quitting, just reprioritizing." She said nothing. He swallowed. "I know I'm not the same person who left here, and I know you don't owe me anything, but I'd like to stay, if there's space for me here." She looked at him for a long, still moment. The sounds of the fair blurred around them, music, laughter, the squeal of a ride in motion, but none of it touched them. "You always had a place here," she said finally. "You just didn't see it before." His shoulders dropped, tension releasing in places he hadn't realized were clenched. "I see it now." Claire stepped closer, towel still in hand, water beating down her arms. "And if you stay, Nathan, this can't be temporary, not just until you miss the city again." "I don't miss the city," he said. "I miss you." It wasn't a dramatic moment. No kiss in the rain, no sweeping declaration. Just two people soaked in fairground lights choosing something honest. They stood in it together, not rushing the silence that followed. Eventually Owen ran over with a funnel cake, powdered sugar already on his shirt. "I won the ring toss," he shouted. Claire grinned. "Let me guess, you picked the biggest, ugliest stuffed animal." Owen held up a neon green frog the size of a pillow. "I named him Steve." Nathan laughed, ruffling his son's hair. And for a moment, just one quiet, complete moment, they were all standing in something whole, something real. None of them said it, but they all felt it. They weren't passing through anymore. The days slipped into August with the kind of heat that made everything slower, gentler, as if the whole town was catching its breath before the world shifted again. Maplewood always got quieter before school started. Vacationers packed up. Porch lights came on earlier. The lake turned from a playground to a mirror. Nathan stood barefoot in the kitchen flipping pancakes with Owen. It had become a Saturday ritual, one of the many things they'd never done before this summer. Music played low on Claire's old Bluetooth speaker, some dusty folk tune she'd introduced them to weeks back. Owen hummed along. "You ever think you'd be this domestic?" Owen asked, arching a brow. Nathan laughed. "Define domestic." "Like you cook now, you know where the spatula lives." "I own this house, Owen." "Yeah, but you used to only stay here for a day, max." Nathan didn't answer right away. He flipped a pancake, then said, "It's different now." Owen nodded, not looking at him. "You think we'll still be here in the winter?" Nathan leaned on the counter. "Do you want to be?" Owen hesitated. "I think so." There it was again, that quiet, steady confirmation Nathan kept finding in the small moments. It wasn't just about Claire anymore. It wasn't even about escape. It was about what they were building. Owen glanced up. "You gonna ask her?" Nathan blinked. "Ask her what?" "You know, ask her." Nathan laughed, suddenly unsure whether he should be grateful or embarrassed that his 12-year-old had such a sharp read on his heart. "I'm working on it," he said. "Work faster." Claire was on her porch when he walked over later that afternoon, her hands stained with soil, a half-filled flower box beside her. She looked up as he approached, sweat on her brow, hair tucked under a bandana. "Need help?" he asked. "I've got it." He crouched beside her anyway. She let him. They worked in companionable silence for a while, the air rich with the scent of lavender and rosemary. A blue jay called somewhere in the trees. The lake lapped gently at the dock. Eventually he looked over at her, soil under his nails, shirt already clinging to his back. "I'm not leaving," he said. She didn't look surprised. "I figured." "I'm not taking the board seat either." That made her glance up. "Really?" "I told them I'd consult remotely, step away from the day-to-day, make space for whatever this is." Claire looked at him for a long time. "That's a big shift." "Yeah. And it doesn't scare you?" He shook his head slowly. "It does, but it doesn't feel wrong." She stood brushing dirt from her hands, and he followed. There was a different kind of quiet between them now, not distance, not hesitation, just something waiting. "I want to build something real here," he said. "Not just for me, for Owen, for us if you'll have me." Claire crossed her arms, not in defense but in thought. "You're asking me what?" He stepped forward, closing the space. "I'm asking if we can start over, but this time together." She looked up at him, eyes searching, and then without ceremony she nodded once. "Okay." He smiled, wide and open, and a little disbelieving. Then she added, "But I still get to make fun of you when you mess up the thermostat." He laughed. Deal. The weeks that followed unfolded like roots digging in. Nathan and Owen moved officially into the lake house. Nathan bought real furniture, a dining table that fit more than two people, lamps that cast warm light instead of white glare. He joined the town council, something he never would have imagined himself doing, and started taking meetings from the screened-in porch with the lake as his backdrop. Claire didn't rush anything, but she was there. In the garden, on the dock, some nights on the porch swing, sipping wine while the sun folded itself into the trees. Owen flourished. He started middle school in Maplewood that fall, sketchbook in one hand, awkward confidence in the other. He still rolled his eyes at his dad, but sometimes he did it while smiling. On the first real cold morning, Claire showed up with an old thermos of cider and a second-hand coat that she insisted Nathan needed. He wore it every day after that. One night well into September, the three of them sat around a bonfire in the backyard. The stars overhead were so clear it hurt to look at them. Owen was curled in a hammock with a flashlight and a book. Nathan and Claire sat close, shoulders pressed, firelight painting shadows across their faces. He looked over at her, something soft blooming in his chest. "I think I was supposed to come back here broken." Claire turned to him, eyes catching the flame. "You weren't broken, Nathan, just unfinished." He nodded slowly, and now. She leaned in, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. "Now you're learning how to stay." He let the words settle. They didn't need to define what came next. There was no pressure for a proposal, no deadline to the unfolding, but he knew. They both did. This was home now. Not the house, not the town. Far. And the boy with his sketchbook and dry sarcasm and growing heart. The life he never meant to build had grown around him anyway, wild and warm and real. He wrapped his arm around her as the fire crackled low, and neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. He had stayed. And that was everything.